He feels so glad that he smiles as he enjoys the progress of the disciple, just as a smiling parent enjoys the activities of a child who is trying to stand up or crawl perfectly. Text 83.
কৃষ্ণ নাম মহামন্ত্রের এই তো স্বভাব, যেই জপে তার কৃষ্ণে উপজয় ভাব।
It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. Purport. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mang buddha bhava samanvita. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Bhagavad-Gita, 10th chapter, 8th verse. In this verse, it is explained that one who chants the Hare Krishna mantra develops bhava, ecstasy, which is the point at which revelation begins. It is the preliminary stage in developing one's original love for God. A neophyte disciple begins by hearing and chanting, associating with devotees, and practicing the regulative principles. And thus, he vanquishes all of his unwanted bad habits. In this way, he develops attachment for Krishna and cannot forget Krishna even for a moment. Bhava is almost the successful stage of spiritual life. A sincere student orally receives the holy name from the spiritual master, and after being initiated, he follows the regulative principles given by the spiritual master. When the holy name is properly served in this way, automatically the spiritual nature of the holy name spreads. In other words, the devotee becomes qualified in offenselessly chanting the holy name. When one is completely fit to chant the holy name in this way, he is eligible to make disciples all over the world, and he actually becomes Jagat Guru. Then the entire world, under his influence, begins to chant the holy names of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Thus, all the disciples of such a spiritual master increase in attachment for Krishna, and therefore he sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes dances, and sometimes chants. These symptoms are very prominently manifest in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes, when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. As explained by Caitanya Mahaprabhu, however, actually, this is not due to practice, for without extra endeavor, these symptoms become manifest. In anyone who sincerely chants the Maha Mantra, many fools, not knowing the transcendental nature of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, sometimes impede our loudly chanting this mantra, yet one who is actually advanced in the fulfillment of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra induces others to chant also. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, Krishna Shakti Bina Nahe Tar Pravartan. Unless one receives special power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he cannot preach the glories of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. As devotees propagate the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general population of the entire world gets the opportunity to understand the glories of the holy name. While chanting and dancing or hearing the holy name of the Lord, one automatically remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because there is no difference between the holy name and Krishna, the chanter is immediately linked with Krishna. Thus connected, a devotee develops his original attitude of service to the Lord. In this attitude of constantly serving Krishna, which is called bhava, one always thinks of Krishna in many different ways. One who has attained this bhava stage is no longer under the clutches of the illusory energy. When other spiritual ingredients such as trembling, perspiration, tears, etc., are added to this bhava stage, the devotee gradually attains love of Krishna. The holy name of Krishna is called the Maha Mantra. Other mantras mentioned in the Narada Pancharatra are known simply as mantras, but the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is called the Maha Mantra. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gatamayam Dadati Sha Pandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This purport, Srila Prabhupada goes a little bit into the idea of the stage of bhava, which is not bhava. You know the difference between bhava and bhava? Who knows? What's the difference between bhava and bhava?
Bhav means huge, is it? Bhav, Sagar, Bhav.
Yeah.
Universe.
And
Bhava means the feeling,
Ecstasy.
ecstasy.
Yes. Bhajahure mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charanarvindare Dulabha Manava Janma Satsage Taraha E Bhava Sindure. Yeah. So usually bhava has different meanings, but one of the meanings is like this whole material world is bhava. Whereas bhava is a stage of ecstasy when on progressing from Vaidhi Bhakti to prema. And so here it's said that Ishwar Puri is saying that someone immediately, when chanting the holy names, can develop this bhava. So what does it mean? Immediately somebody might be chanting, I've been chanting for years and I don't have bhava yet. Well, yes, that may be so. And the reason is because we may not be chanting it with sufficient sincerity, and we have to avoid the 10 offenses, as it said that when chanting offenselessly immediately, then that will come. So that should be known. And so why we haven't attained this bhava? It's because of those. We have to make progress. We're not doing it as properly as we should. That's true. Just like in the scientific world, when you do an experiment, there's, say a standard experiment, one has to follow certain standard procedures. And if those standard procedures aren't followed, the result can become mistaken. For example, Sadaputta Prabhu was talking about how in measuring the movement of the earth, there's a certain device that you can use to measure the rotation of the earth. But it has to be in an area where there's no other vibrations, which would skew the results. You follow? It's something like a pendulum, not exactly a pendulum, but something like a pendulum. So say you're trying to do the experiment, near a highway where trucks are rumbling by. That's going to make the environment shake, and it's going to throw off the results of the experiment. I was surprised that I didn't, I was thinking about that, and then the other day I was standing in the front, and a truck went by on the street nearby, and I could feel the rumbling of the whole house. So then without those standard conditions, the result won't be accurate. So similarly, without those standard conditions, one may not experience immediately the bhava, the ecstasy of chanting the holy name. But still, chanting, one might get a glimpse of it. That's called shadow or shadow attachment. Bhava. And another thing mentioned here is that bhakti or love of God is there in every person, waiting to be developed. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, or sometimes Prabhupada says Krishna Bhakti, Sadhya Kabunoi, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kare Udoy. The Krishna Prema or Krishna Bhakti is there permanently situated in each one of our hearts. And by the process of regularly, just as you're doing in this class regularly and other classes, hearing and chanting those 16 rounds, gradually, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte, one's consciousness becomes purified and it becomes manifest. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kare Udoy. Another comment I wanted to make about this is those of you who were here last week, at the end we played Srila Prabhupada speaking. Do you remember any of that? There was a album, on chanting Hare Krishna. That's the title of the thing. So anyway, I wanted to play that so we can kind of remember how it's coming, Prabhupada's instructions and hearing his sound vibration. And one thing that surprised me was that in that version that Srila Prabhupada, that was recorded there was a piece that was not included. Apparently, there's a couple of versions of that same lecture or essay. So in that one we heard, there was a part that was not included, and that was relevant to this point here. So I found another version of that same essay, but it includes this part. See if it says, in that one it said, even a child could dance, even a dog can chant, right? Do you remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but there's another version. It says, in a more advanced stage, of course, one is not expected to commit offenses on the grounds of spiritual understanding. In the beginning, there may not be the presence of all transcendental activities, which are 8 in number. These are being stopped as though dumb. 2, perspiration. 3, standing of the hairs on the body. 4, dislocation of voice. 5, trembling. 6, fading of the body. 7, crying in ecstasy. And 8, trance. But there is no doubt that chanting for a while takes one immediately to the spiritual platform, and one shows the first symptom of this in the urge to dance along with the chanting of the mantra. So I found that very interesting, that just as in this discussion by Ishwarapuri and Lord Caitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is relating it to Prakashananda Saraswati, right at the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada is discussing these transcendental ecstasies that one may experience through chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And those ecstasies are there simply because one, by chanting the holy names, one is pleasing, offenselessly, one is pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the result of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the chanting of the Maha Mantra is immediately coming to the spiritual platform and feeling those spiritual ecstasies. Unfortunately, we're not in that, but we can aspire to that. And the aspiration is, oh, I want to do my service, my chanting, or whatever service we're doing so nicely that Krishna is pleased, and automatically we'll be experiencing that higher taste of Krishna Bhava. This is very nice. Those same ecstasies were experienced by Dhruva Maharaj when he was touched by the conch shell of Lord Vishnu. They were experienced by Prahlad Maharaj, touched by the hand of Lord Nrsingadev. There was another devotee that came to visit Lord Krishna when he was in Dwarka. He was a poor Brahmin. I don't know if you know his name.
Sudama?
Yeah, Sudama. So Sudama had been a childhood friend of Lord Krishna, but and they had some activities together of serving their spiritual master. But later, of course, Sudama got married, so did Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna was living in a palace in Dwarka, and Sudama had his small hut. And what was the place where Sudama was living? Near Porbandar. Yeah, Porbandar, yeah. So he brought some chipped rice, so they call it poha, Shatpita poha, to Krishna. So he went through some tribulation to get through all the different guards that were there. Even though Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had guards. And when he came before Lord Krishna, he embraced him. And Sudama, he said, Kvaham daridra papiyan kva Krishna Shriniketana Brahma Bandhu iti smaham bahubhyam parirambita. Kvaham, who am I? Daridra, I'm a poor person. Papiyan, I'm sinful. Kva Krishna, and who's Krishna? Shriniketana, the husband of the goddess of fortune. Brahma Bandhu iti smaham. I'm just an unqualified friend of a Brahmin. I'm not really a Brahmin, actually. Bahubhyam parirambita. So how is it that this husband of the goddess of fortune, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has now embraced me in this way? And then he was feeling these same ecstasies. So it's very interesting that the same ecstasy one can receive by being embraced by Lord Krishna, one can experience also by offenselessly chanting the holy name of the Lord, as mentioned here. That's why, in one sense, the holy name is called the Maha Mantra. Others names are mantras, other chants, but this is the Maha Mantra. Some questions or comments on this verse and purport? Anybody? No?
Hi Krishna, I have a question, comment, and that would be on the distinction of the Maha Mantra. Emphatically said, meaning that it's the only one. That's my question. I mean, it's in its ability to have Krishna wrap his arms around us and are being able to connect with him directly. Are there any others?
No other Maha Mantras. Om, Om, people like to chant Om. We also like to chant Om, not exclusively of Hare Krishna though. But Om is called Mahavakya, but not Maha Mantra. Mantra means deliverance. So that's the principal mantra that we chant, prescribed by Lord Caitanya and the Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada. So I'm not aware of any other Maha Mantras. So we're especially fortunate to get this Maha Mantra, like we were saying the other day. Sri Rama, Rama, Rameti. How does it go?
Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanani.
Very good, very good. Sahasranama Vitulyam Ram. So one, like in funeral ceremonies, often there's the chanting of Vishnu Sahasranam Stotram. But in the Vishnu Sahasranam Stotram anyway, it says the same benefit you can get from chanting Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Vishnu, you get from chanting Ram once. And then Sahasranamnan Punyanam Trir Avritya Chulat Palam Ekaritya to Krishnasya Namaikam Tat Prayachati. That chanting the 1,000 names of Vishnu or one name of Ram 3 times, you get the same benefit, the same transcendental benefit, just by chanting Krishna once. So that Krishna name is very, very special, very special. So many other mantras. I was mentioning to, I mentioned before that Lakshmi Nrsimha Prabhu, my godbrother, was there with Srila Prabhupada in the later days, just before Prabhupada left this world. And there was 24-hour kirtan going on in his room softly. And so he was chanting Hare Krishna. And then all of a sudden he decided, well, let me change the mantra. Brahma Bole Chaturmukhe. Prabhupada had been lying there with motionless for hours. And then as soon as he started chanting that other mantra, his hand went up. No, Hare Krishna. So that's the essential mantra, Maha Mantra. And during the Gundicha Marjana, the cleaning of the Gundicha temple, it's described that all the servants of Lord Caitanya and Lord Caitanya himself, anything they wanted, they would just say Hare Krishna, and then people would know what they're asking for. So they're, the Hare Krishna was a request. They're using Krishna's name for everything. And in the Sanskrit grammar, this is called Harinam Amrita Vyakarana, written by Jiva Goswami. He relates every single word and root in Sanskrit to Krishna, the holy name of Krishna. I hope that answers some of the question.
Hare Krishna Vishnu.
Hare Krishna, Dronacharya Prabhu.
Could you explain this this statement by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj? He says, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Parvartana. Unless one receives special power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he cannot preach the glories of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Yeah. So that Shakti is coming from Lord Caitanya and the disciplic succession. If someone is a individual is sincere in their attempt to understand and serve the spiritual predecessors in Lord Caitanya, then automatically, naturally, they'll want to spread the chanting and the glories of the holy name. So that is That is the power of attorney given by Lord Chaitanya to those who follow his instructions. And, the representative of that is, the exemplar of that, of course, is, the six Goswamis, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and our Srila Prabhupada also. He was given that special power of attorney to be able to spread the Krishna consciousness, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra all over the world in just a very, very short time. How long did it take for Christianity to spread around the world? Any idea?
1700 years or 1600 years?
How about Islam? But just for, Srila Prabhupada started preaching in 1965, 66, and by 1977, and just even before that, before Prabhupada's leaving the planet, even before that, chanting Hare Krishna was known in every continent except, of course, Antarctica. I don't think in Antarctica it was known, but so that was power of attorney. Power of attorney. When an attorney works on behalf of the client, or the attorney can sign for the client. For example, if you buy a piece of property and you have an attorney, under contract, the attorney can purchase that property for you. It's legal. That happened in New Jersey when we purchased the property in Tawako. The devotees, I wasn't involved at that time, but the devotees were concerned that perhaps if the local people knew that this was the Hare Krishna movement purchasing the property, then they may, not allow the deal to go through. So they got the attorney to purchase it. He purchased it, said something, attorney John Silver and designee. So he works, he has the potency of the Supreme Lord is there. It's Krishna Shakti. And also other devotees in their own way, in their small way, by becoming serious about following the order of Lord Chaitanya, they can also spread the chanting of the holy names. And we see, otherwise it wasn't, it was primarily Srila Prabhupada and his literature and his books and etc., but also the devotees who serve him can also be subordinate attorneys, like they have a assistant district attorney, like that. So we can be assistants that way. Next verse.
Thank you.
কৃষ্ণ বিষয়ক প্রেমা পরম পুরুষার্থ যার আগে তৃণ তুল্য চারি পুরুষার্থ.
While chanting the holy name of the Lord, one should not desire the material advancements represented by economic development.
Oh, you missed the translation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation are known as the four goals of life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. But before love of God, the fifth and highest goal, these appear as insignificant as straw in the street. While chanting the holy name of the Lord, one should not desire the material advancements represented by economic development, religiosity, sense gratification, and ultimately liberation from the material world. As stated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest perfection of life is to develop one's love for Krishna. Prema Pumarto Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Murtamiram. When we compare love of Godhead with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, we can understand that these achievements may be desirable objectives for bubukshus. Bubukshus, I've never heard that word before. Those who desire to enjoy this material world, and mumukshus, or those who desire liberation from it. But they are very insignificant in the eyes of a pure devotee who has developed bhava, the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. Dharma, religiosity; artha, economic development; kama, sense gratification; and moksha, liberation, are the four principles of religion which pertain to the material world. Therefore, in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is declared, Dharma prochita kaitavotra. Cheating religious systems in terms of these four material principles are completely discarded from Srimad Bhagavatam, for Srimad Bhagavatam teaches only how to develop one's dormant love of God. Bhagavad-Gita is the preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore it ends with the words, Sarva-dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me, unto me. Bhagavad-Gita 1866. To adopt this means one should reject all ideas of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, and fully engage in the service of the Lord, which is transcendental to these four principles. Love of Godhead is the original function of the spirit soul, and it is eternal. It is as eternal as the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This eternity is called Sanatan. When one revives his loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it should be understood that he has been successful in achieving the desired goal of his life. At that time, everything is automatically done by the mercy of the holy name, and the devotee automatically advances in his spiritual progress. Next verse.
পঞ্চম পুরুষার্থ প্রেমানন্দামৃত সিন্ধু মোক্ষাদি আনন্দ যার নহে এক বিন্দু।
Bindu, yeah, drop. For a devotee who has actually developed bhava, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama, and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea.
কৃষ্ণ নামের ফল প্রেমা সর্বশাস্ত্রে কয় ভাগ্যে সেই প্রেমা তোমায় করিল উদয়।
The conclusion of all revealed scriptures is that one should awaken his dormant love of Godhead. You are greatly fortunate that you have already done so.
প্রেমার স্বভাবে করে চিত্ততনু ক্ষোভ কৃষ্ণের চরণ প্রাপ্তে উপজায় লোভ।
It is the characteristic of the love of It is characteristic of love of Godhead that by nature it induces transcendental symptoms in one's body and makes one more and more greedy to achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord.
প্রেমার স্বভাবে ভক্ত হাসে কান্দে গায় উন্মত্ত হইয়া নাচে ইতি উতি ধায়।
When one actually develops love of Godhead, he naturally sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes chants, and sometimes runs here and there, just as a madman. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami says that sometimes persons who have no love of Godhead at all display ecstatic bodily symptoms. Artificially, they sometimes laugh, cry, and dance just like madmen. But this cannot help one progress in Krishna consciousness. Rather, such artificial agitation of the body is to be given up when one naturally develops the necessary bodily symptoms. Actual blissful life, manifested in genuine spiritual laughing, crying, and dancing, is the symptom of real advancement in Krishna consciousness, which can be achieved by a person who always voluntarily engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. if one who is not yet developed imitates such symptoms artificially, he creates chaos in the spiritual life of human society. You know, the verse is there. Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Pancharatriki Vidimpina, Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatayaiva Kalpate. People who claim to be engaging in spiritual activities or devotional service without any reference or without reference to the Shruti, means Vedas, Smriti means Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc., Puranadi, etc., Pancharatra, the Pancharatriki Vidimbina, their activities only cause a disturbance. So that's what it says in the last year. He creates chaos in spiritual life of human society. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in discussing this idea also, he told the story of the 4 Annabhava. You know that 4 Annabhava story? Did I tell you that already? Okay. Anyway, in Bengal, particularly, sometimes they have competition to do kirtan, and who can be the most ecstatic, who can dance and cry and sing and run. So there were 2 villages that had their kirtan party, but they're having a competition. So one village really wanted to make a really good show. So they hired one supposed kirtaniya to really get into the, crying, laughing, chanting, dancing. So he did his performance along with their other kirtaniyas. It went on for about half hour. And then the other village, they did theirs, but it went on for 45 minutes. So the other village won the competition. You follow? His was better. So then the man that was hired by the first village, he was questioned, well, come on, how come you didn't do better than that? So his answer was, his answer was, how much bhava do you expect for 4 annas? So that's the 4 annabhava. 4 annabhava. So we have to be very careful not to be enamored or followed by those persons who, in their practical life, they might be doing all kinds of things, but they should make a show of supposed spiritual ecstasy. Those are we call them prakrita sahajiyas. Sahajiya means things who take things very easily, and prakrita means materially. They take love of Godhead, chanting Hare Krishna, and all those things very, very easily, without serious attention to the rules and regulations of devotional service that's required before one can come to a platform of ecstasy. 4 annabhava. There's a nice story in the Miracle on 2nd Avenue of when the devotees came to San Francisco. There was some Bengali travelers in robes that came to the temple early on Frederick Street. Anyway, one of them had a little dog, and Mukunda Swami was a little bit suspicious because he thought that, well, they should know that you shouldn't bring a dog inside the temple room. So anyway, these 4 Bengali robed men invited devotees to come to one of their performances, but somehow it didn't work out. But later they showed up at a function where the devotees were chanting the holy names. So there was a good audience there, and people began to chant and sing and dance, and spontaneously got up, the Americans. And so the Bengali men also, they started dancing and chanting, and then at the end they fell on the ground, or one of them fell on the ground as if completely lost in spiritual ecstasy. And everybody gathered around and, touched him, but he was supposedly completely in trance. So Mukunda at that time asked Srila Prabhupada about this people, and he said they were bowels, the bowels. So, and he described a little bit about what happened and what was going on. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, you should chant in their ear, but if he doesn't get up, then you're welcome to kick him. Because it was just a pretending. And Mukunda Swami said, yeah, he was thinking the same thing. So there are those who, we put on a show of spiritual bliss, spiritual ecstasy, but without following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, it's not possible. It's not possible to have transcendental ecstasy. Not possible. And that's just so. Even within the Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Prabhupada was quite disturbed when he would hear devotees chant the Maha Mantra following the ways of the sahajas and the bolas. You know how that is? Do you know how that is? Anybody?
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna.
Oh, that's a different way. Yeah, that's a different mantra, right? But
Is it on the tune of movie songs? Is that
a good
Hare
point,
Rama
but no.
first and then Hare Krishna?
What's that?
Is it the Hare Rama first and then the Hare Krishna?
No. It's generally what they do is they go Hare. They drag out the mantra. So it's very difficult to follow, and they get more into the musical style than instead of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's comment was that you can chant in that time. You could chant 8 mantras in the time of they're dragging out one syllable of the mantra. You follow?
I liked your kirtan.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just kidding.
So anyway, Srila Prabhupada actually on more than one occasion heard ISKCON devotees singing in that way and had it stopped. Now it's become a little fashionable in ISKCON to do that kind of chanting, but that isn't pleasing to Srila Prabhupada anyway. Questions, comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sahaja and this, I'll call it a mood, but because we're not with each other every second of the day, it becomes,
I lost you.
in my
Okay.
opinion, difficult to determine even who is following the 4 regulative principles. So that being the barometer as to who may be feeling these emotions accurately, is it appropriate for one to judge, or is it, or I mean, you can't know externally who actually is following regulative principles, but when someone feels a particular way, is that really our realm to judge or understand that? What's the barometer?
Yeah, here. I mean, in these cases, you can monitor. Yes, we should monitor someone's activities in devotional service. Someone who's regularly engaging, not looking for a lot of material results from bhakti is a good case. But you're right, we can't check with people every minute of every day. Although with Srila Prabhupada, devotees were around him at all times. I mean, so we didn't find him engaging in intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating, or gambling. So, as you point out, so the best thing is, as Srila Prabhupada says, the best thing is to hear the chanting from the lips of the pure devotee that you can especially have confidence in, like Srila Prabhupada. That's best. And if there are others who, are regularly, pretty much regularly engaged in devotional service, chanting 16 rounds, etc., 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 then you might hear them also. But it's a good point you make. Others are might. It's not unusual for people to flaunt material activities, intoxication, eating meat, etc., and still claim to be advanced in spiritual life. I mean, that's not going to happen so much in ISKCON, although it may be happening a little bit. But in those cases, certainly we want to judge. Someone is, smoking ganja and then saying they're advanced in chanting the holy name. Certainly we want to judge. We would not like to broadcast or follow or encourage people to follow such a kind of person.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for clarifying that we're more so talking about the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada in these displays of emotions, because it's quite common, for example, and not to judge Christianity, but people jumping up and down and experiencing these different types of emotions.
Good point. Not just in Krishna consciousness, right?
Yeah.
We have the Shakers and the Quakers and all those people. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Any other comment? Mother Vatsala is there with her hand. I see her hand.
My humble pranam, humble obeisance
and mine to you.
And glories to Srila Prabhupada is our great Acharya of today. Thank you, Prabhu. Could you explain what is our Sanatana Dharma for this day and age?
Yeah. Our Sanatana Dharma is engaging in devotional service or bhakti to Krishna. And the prime aspect of that is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's it.
So when I want to explain to somebody asks that, so this is the way I explain. That's an eternal way of living, following the Dharma, right?
I mean, depending on who you're talking to. Yeah, the eternal function of the soul is to serve. And when that service is directed to Krishna, God, that is what Sanatana Dharma means. We have to serve. We serve our country, our boss, our family, our body. So, but if we turn that service, and with all those service, other kinds of services are temporary, depending on the circumstances we find ourselves. But when we turn that service to God, that becomes our Sanatana. That is our Sanatana Dharma. Dharma, the actual word Dharma, we take it as being, Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, but really there's a more deep connotation to Dharma, which means something that cannot be changed ever. So all those other kinds of Dharmas can be changed. We can change from Christian to Hindu or Buddhist, or those can change. But what can't change is service, and the eternal service, the eternal function of the soul is service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Krishna. That's our natural service condition and eternal.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank
you. I have a question.
Yes. Miss Humbly yours, yes.
Yeah. It's not like a question, it's more like a
statement.
Add-on. So when Srila Prabhupada is saying that, these people display this artificial spirituality and fake spirituality and all that. In my opinion, I think, that's still better than having no spirituality. So better than the people roaming on the streets and doing nothing. They're at least coming to the temple and doing something related to spirituality. So one day they'll get there. So why to judge these fakes? I mean, they're still better than people who do nothing.
Apparently, I mean, fakes, the fakes, where there's all different kinds of fakes, but for it says here, this isn't Srila Prabhupada, this is Rupa Goswami is saying that it creates chaos in the spiritual life of human society. So, so we might have some aspect of being, thinking we're spiritual and we display, some kind of emotion. But especially becomes disturbing in society when the people who are fake in their spirituality are accepted as being the leaders and the example. That's particularly problematic. It's like the example is given of a cobra. A cobra is dangerous. You try to avoid that, yeah. But a cobra with a jewel in its hood is even more dangerous, because people might get attracted to the jewel and then they are still bitten. So especially those who are in higher positions and claiming to be spiritual adepts, but are not, they're showing fake or false bhava, is dangerous in that way. You're right in one sense that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada said that you're right, they're better than gross materialists, because at least they have some relation, they're trying to do something with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada made that comment elsewhere also. But in terms of being exemplified or leaders in a group or in society, that's where the chaos comes in. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vishnugada Prabhu.
Pancha Kalpatarubhishta
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Vishnugada Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much.